So, Shannon, how much has LeBron's success had to do with motivating Jordan to release this documentary right now?
He heard those footsteps. And for the very first time, he had heard those footsteps because they had been asking Michael to do this for an extended period of time, and he kept rebuffing their offers. It wasn't until, this is what they said, now if it's a lie, they told it. It wasn't until the parade in Cleveland in 2016, that during the parade, Jenny, not before the season, not when he was in Miami, not during the parade, because for the very first time, we had a guy that beat a 73-win team, which had one more win than the 96 Bulls. They had a unanimous MVP, and they were down 3-1. And we started to hear the swells, something that we had never heard before. We had never heard Kobe in the GOAT debate with Mike. It wasn't until all of a sudden somebody got mad. I won't mention his name, but he's in his palatial estate up in Century City. One Skip Bayless tried to rebuff me, and when I started saying GOAT James, then all of a sudden you want to throw Kobe in there and say Kobe above. Yeah, you. Now all of a sudden, Skip, they said, if you ask a particular thing, you ask the who, the what, the where, the why, then you'll have your answer. We know who the who is. We know what the what is, and now we know why. LeBron James was running, and he had gained, and people had started to say, I don't know, Skip. I know what Michael was, but we'd never seen anything like this. A guy that leads in points, rebounds, steals, and assists in a finals. A guy that, what? How is that possible? And for the very first time, because this is what we know about all-time great players or people. Their legacy is very important to them, especially if you cannot add or take away from it. LeBron James was still building this mosaic. He's still building on it, Skip. Now, I believe, even though he's not finished, I've seen enough of this to say he's the GOAT. You're going to disagree. But you know why he did it, and you ought to be ashamed of yourself because you told me for the longest time, this is so beneath Michael. You think he's worried about LeBron? You think he's worried about this? I absolutely think he's worried about GOAT James.
Shannon Sharpe. I sat in this very chair in my humble abode way down the hill from you in Century City. You're way up the hill from me in that palatial estate, coming to us from the wine cellar up there in Bel Air. Wow. I can't compete with that, but LeBron cannot compete with Michael Jordan, and I'm going to tell you why. You're right about this. I sat right here on Friday, and I told you that the number one reason Michael finally agreed to do this was he got sick and tired of hearing Shannon Sharpe talking about LeBron James is the GOAT. And I also told you, and we're going to talk about this later, but I mentioned this to you on Friday. I gave you two reasons. And the second reason was Michael is so sick and tired of hearing people like me bring up the fact that he's the worst GM and team builder in the history of pro basketball because in the 14 years he has run the Charlotte franchise as the basketball man, as the Jerry Krause. They've made the playoffs 3 times in 14 years and have yet to win a single playoff series. And they're woeful again this year, and they're not going to make the playoffs if, in fact, we have any playoffs. So that would be 15 years. So my point to you was, yes, I didn't know this detail that you bring up until yesterday when I read Ramona Shelburne on ESPN.com write that this producer of this documentary broke through on the day of the parade in 2016 when LeBron had come all the way back from 3-1 down against the Golden State Warriors, thanks in large part to the suspension of Draymond Green, but I won't go there right now. And the point was he had done it with Kyrie hitting the last shot to win Game 7. So Michael finally relented after so many big, like, star filmmakers. Spike Lee had tried to do a documentary on LeBron. But LeBron finally signed off because this producer had done the Allen Iverson documentary. And I believe it was a 30 for 30 on ESPN. And Michael said, man, I love that. And I watched it 3 times. So suddenly on parade day in 2016, at that point, Michael was 53 years of age. He's now 57 years of age. I think it hit him. I got to fight fire with fire. I'm not on social media. That's beneath me. I'm not going to do Instagram. I'm not going to do Twitter. I'll do this one and only documentary. I'm going to do an epic documentary that is now supposed to be 10, as we know, 10 episodes. So he said, I'm going to do it in one fell swoop, and I'm going to sign off on all that behind-the-scenes footage that the NBA was allowed to shoot and keep in its archives off 97, 98 that hadn't seen the light of day. And yet Adam Silver and Michael had a deal in place whereby it would never see the light of day until both agreed it was okay. So not until 2016 did Michael sign off on it. And not until right now did Michael sign off on releasing it. And Shannon, all I can say is I now fully expect retaliation from LeBron. Remember 2 weeks ago, LeBron was talking about, he was talking about, I'm going to do some kind of video talking about all my highlights. Well, don't you think that was a preemptive strike at this? Don't you think there's a possibility that maybe by next week, we'll hear that Space Jam 2, the release date has been pushed completely into this coming week, and maybe it's going on Netflix? LeBron's going to have to fight back now because he's getting crushed by this. So, yes, I believe hugely that Michael just being sick and tired of all the LeBron talk because he can't stomach it motivated him to do this documentary.
And Skip, you said, and what Michael did, Skip, he's like you said, he's not on social media. He's not giving a whole lot of interviews. He says, here, watch this, and then get back to me. Skip, when I say Kobe, look, the thing is with Kobe is a historically great player. You could arguably say he's top 10, top 5, whatever you want to rank him. But it's hard to say that he's the GOAT when everything he did, he stole from Mike. You don't get to steal somebody else's everything, from the armband to the way he walked to the way he talked to every mannerism that Michael had, and be in the GOAT and be the GOAT. LeBron did it a totally different way. Like I said, Magic. LeBron has always been more Magic Johnson than Michael Jordan. Michael came into the league, Skip, and even Rod Thorne said, hell, if we'd have had the first pick, we was taking Olajuwon. Hakeem Olajuwon was universally regarded as the best pick in that draft, Skip. And at that time, think about it, Skip, you went from Russell to Chamberlain to Kareem. Everybody wanted a 7-footer, especially if he was skilled, because they was winning the championship. It was you had to have a big man. The big man was winning the championship, Skip. So they were going to go with Olajuwon. It just, like you said, it just so happened the 2 tallest men in the draft, Skip, went 1-2. They're like, oh, we stuck with Jordan. What a nice consolation prize. The third pick, Skip, the bronze medal is Michael Jordan. That's what you got. You didn't get the gold and silver. You got the bronze. But, Skip, Michael is well aware. Michael will never admit this, but he's well aware of what people say and how he's viewed. And his legacy is the ultimate importance. Because the thing is, Skip, when you're done, you're done. There's no more adding. There's no more subtracting. So this is why Tom Brady's continue to play. Tom Brady would love to have that all-time passing touchdown because, Skip, look how long he'll keep it. If Drew Brees only plays 1 more year, Tom Brady plays 2 years, he ends his career with 585, 590, maybe even 600 touchdowns. That's going to be so long. You believe Aaron Rodgers is going to throw for another 240 touchdowns to possibly catch that? Patrick Mahomes is a long, long way away. So this thing might stand forever. That's his legacy. So, Skip, I got 6 TDs. I got 6 Super Bowls. I got the all-time passing mark as far as yards and touchdowns. Skip, imagine, this would be no debate. If Michael had 40,000 points with all this, because, like you said, a lot of this is going to have to be an accumulation. LeBron has 5 MVPs, has 4 or 5 Finals MVPs, and he's the all-time leading scorer. Well, it'd be a moot point if Jordan had all that. If Jordan had many points, had more points than Kareem, it'd be. I don't know how you could catch that.
Okay, so back to the motivation for this. Remember on Friday, I pointed out to you, and you said that Michael has a hard time acknowledging, his sort of rivalry with LeBron, if you will. He doesn't consider it a rivalry, but I pointed out to you in 2013, that's 7 years ago, a piece that ran in ESPN, the magazine, by Wright Thompson pointed out just how much that LeBron was already sticking in Michael's craw. Now remember, it posted on the magazine came out on February 14th of 2013. And Wright Thompson wrote that Michael had already been studying LeBron's game and was quick to point out to Wright Thompson his many flaws in his game. And the first flaw that he pointed out that Wright wrote about in the piece, you can look it up, was that Michael had decided that when LeBron went left, he usually pulled up. When he drove right, he usually continued to drive it to the basket. And Michael had decided that LeBron was much more potent going to his right because he was bigger than Michael. And he said, Michael admitted, I would have a hard time contending him at the rim. So I'm going to force him, push him to go left. I ain't letting him go right. That's the quote, Michael, about LeBron in 2013. So he had already broken down LeBron's game to the point that he's saying, this is how I would stop him if I defended him. And remember, Michael took huge pride, at least as much pride in his defense. He was a former Defensive Player of the Year back in the 80s. And he was first team all defense 9 times, including that 97-98 Last Dance season. So he was thinking about how he could defend and control and maybe even stop LeBron in 2013. I have been told by several people around Michael that he always thought that he was tougher mentally than LeBron was because he watched closely, because LeBron's had some meltdowns in his career, the most infamous being obviously the 2011 finals, the first go-round with the Heat against the Dallas Mavericks, when the Heat were obviously up 2-1 at Dallas, and you know the rest of the story. The chosen one became the frozen one. And he's had several freeze-ups that Michael never had. So Michael looks down on LeBron as, gee, they're saying he's better than me. I would never have frozen up like that. And again, I've also been told Kobe also looked down on LeBron for those reasons, that Kobe wouldn't have frozen up in those situations either. So that's why those two guys thought, gee, how can you say he's better than us when in big moments he's shrunk? And in the end, I believe that Michael needed everybody to see once again, once and for all, just how great he was in clutch moments, because we saw, Shannon, the 63-point game at the end of the 85-86 season when he broke his foot, obviously, and then he came back slowly but surely. He resented the fact that Reinsdorf and Krause wanted to keep his minutes down, low, 7-minute bursts per half. Quarter. I mean, per half.
Per half.
So the point was, when he finally got to play a full game at Boston, it was game 2 that he just exploded, and he scored 63. But remember, we got to see him make the free throw, the standalone free throw, to force overtime. So the point was, I think Michael's saying, gee, I want everybody to see that. I want everybody to hear Larry Bird say, oh, he was God disguised as Michael Jordan. And that's Larry Bird saying that. And point out to all the, as I call them, blind witnesses who idolize and adore and put on a pedestal LeBron James. Oh, remember this, remember this, remember this. We even got to hear Steve Kerr after the documentary last night on Scott Van Pelt's show talking about how it wasn't just that he physically dominated the league. he spiritually owned the league, like psychologically owned the league, and the impact was dramatic. So remember, Michael has editorial control. He signs off on everything you're seeing. So there's not complete objectivity here, that it's through Michael's eyes what you're seeing. And he wants everybody to see the truth that, you know, Steve Kerr, Larry Bird, other players, we saw Magic last night saying there's just never been anything like him. So I do think a lot of this is about LeBron James trying to put him back in his place.
Skip, if you remember, Larry Bird was the MVP that season, the 85-86 season. Larry Bird was the MVP, if I'm not mistaken. Skip, that might have been that might have been the end of the three-peat of his MVPs, because he won them consecutively. Skip. And the thing is, you talk about the 63 he dropped in game 2. He dropped 49 in game 1. And he played golf with Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge said he took some money off him. They dropped Danny Ainge off, and they drive him back to the hotel. He told the guy that was telling the story, said, "Hey, tell your boy DJ, I got something for him tomorrow." And dropped 63 on DJ, Larry Bird, Danny Ainge, and Bill Walton. Skip, I think the thing is, if you look at Jordan has really always, well, Kobe, when they ask him, well, who's better? Well, isn't 5 better than 3? I think that rubs LeBron the wrong way, because LeBron, all the other greats, from Kareem to Magic and Bird, have Big O, have paid respects to LeBron. I don't think he feels that he's ever gotten the credit or the respect from Jordan, and that's who he would really want it would mean the most to him. Not that it's the end-all, be-all, Skip, but if what you're going for, if what you aspire to be, and if your mentor, if the guy that you aspire to be is willing to say, you know what, he's that guy, I think that would mean the world to LeBron James.
Yep, I agree. Last quick point before Jenny takes us to break, Shannon. Did you see Rick Carlisle, who we only know mostly as the coach of the Dallas Mavericks? Obviously, they beat LeBron in the finals in 2011. You got to see a second-year Rick Carlisle out of University of Virginia trying to guard Michael Jordan on the baseline, and Jordan just wheels around him and dunks it. And Rick Carlisle's just shaking his head like, what am I doing out here? Yeah.
That was my favorite part of the entire episode last night.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here to get the latest from the show, and be sure to check out more of the best clips from Undisputed, or go watch a few other segments from our other shows on FS1.